Okay, we've got a special press conference now that we'd like to roll right into. Tonight marks the 1,000th NASCAR Nationwide Series event in the history of that series, and I think that's a great testament to the strength of the series, the heritage of the series, and bodes extremely well for the future of the series. And joining us up here, center stage, we have Jack Ingram. Jack is a two-time NASCAR Nationwide Series champion, and he will be inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame January 29, 2014. Congratulations, Jack, on that distinguished honor. Much deserved. Joining him is Elliott Sadler, and he is the driver of the number 11 One Main Financial Chevrolet. He's third in points in the Nationwide Series. And this weekend, in honor of Jack Ingram, he's got a special paint scheme that's got Jack's stylized number 11 on that race car. If you haven't seen it, you need to go check it out. It's good looking. So we just thought it'd be great to bring these two together in honor of the 1,000th Nationwide Series race tonight. And I'm going to ask Elliott maybe to talk about the opportunity to drive that number 11 stylized car tonight, and then also just his thoughts on the significance of 1,000 Nationwide Series races.
Thank you, Kerry. When we were approached a couple months ago about running a retro paint scheme in honor of the 1,000th race tonight at my home track here in Richmond, man, we were really honored about it. And then when they told me the paint scheme was going to be Jack Ingram's because of my number 11, his number 11, he going into the Hall of Fame, all just kind of really tied together. And my team got on board with it. My sponsor definitely got on board with it. But guys, it's an honor for me, and poor Jack's heard this story a couple times because we've done so much together here the last month. I met Jack in Hickory, North Carolina when I was 13 years old. I mean, I was a huge fan. I always sat in the stands and watched those guys race back in the mid-'80s and in the late 80s at South Boston, Hickory, Orange County, Lanier, all those great racetracks. But I actually was a pit crew member for my brother's car when he was attempting one of his first nationwide races at Hickory. And I was underage. I wasn't old enough to have a license because I was only 13. So I would hide in the truck, go in and hide in the truck until the gates would open because everybody back then, nobody had annuals. You guys remember you had to stand outside in line the whole time, and they did that by points. Brother's first race, they were last to get in line. I think practice had almost started before they got in. So I got the car unloaded by myself, 13 years old, got the car on jack stands, and was always a Jack Ingram fan. My dad was always a Jack Ingram fan, and walked down to pits and got to meet him, shook his hand, told him I was a big fan. And here, 20-odd years later, we're sitting here beside each other, honoring his induction into the Hall of Fame. So it's neat how racing brings you full circle a lot of times. And I told my guys this morning we can't embarrass Jack. We got to have a fast race car for tonight because it's a beautiful paint scheme. I hope you guys check it out, and it means a lot to me because it's the same paint scheme I've seen him have so much success with. So thanks to NASCAR and Nationwide and Jack and our sponsors, One Main Financial, and everybody putting this together. It's a big honor for me and my family to come here tonight and race this paint scheme. It means a lot to us because we've been a part of the sport a long, long time.
Thank you, Elliott. Well put. And Jack, congratulations on your going into the Hall of Fame. And just talk a little bit about, as you look back over your career, and now we're up to 1,000 races in the Nationwide Series, and you won a bunch of those. Just talk about your thoughts about the Nationwide Series, and then maybe also a little bit about having that number 11 back out on the track the way that you used to drive it.
It started off, it basically was racing late model sportsman cars around all over the country, including Daytona, and they'd have maybe 20 championship races a year, and you had to run a lot of weekly events. They counted on the national championship also. They was a couple of years, 1982, and 72 and 3, I ran 85 or 6-point races. And when they made it to where you had to only go to 30 racetracks, it had just like a vacation for us. And I really liked the idea. They wanted to do it long before they wound up getting it done, because South Boston or wherever, they didn't want to lose their couple of hot dogs, and I could kind of understand that. But it worked out well for me, and it's worked out well for everyone else to have another division of this caliber. And I was delighted to be able to sign a deal with NASCAR in 1982 to run all them races, and I did until I retired.
Let's take questions now for either Jack or Elliott. We'll get to you. Let's start here with Steve and then go over to Stan.
Question is for Elliott, maybe more so. There was an era with the Nationwide Series, Busch Series, when they would go to South Boston. And what was that like, being a late model driver and watching these guys roll into your track, aspiring, maybe even getting together with some buddies to build a car to race against Jack Ingram and these guys? What was that like as a guy coming through the ranks?
You know what, Steve? I'll bag up even further than that. As a kid, when I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, I'd sit in turn 4 right outside the track. We always had chairs. And get to watch these guys put on a hell of a race. There's always a 200-lapper, tight racing at South Boston. You know, he and Tommy Ellis and Tommy Houston, Chuck Bound, and all the guys, Ronald Cooper, all the guys that race, you know, together so hard. And then years later, being able to like be in a part of my brother's crew, and then me racing late model, it gave me opportunity. They're racing at my home track. So if I can just find me a car and put it together, I already really know the track and the layout and the way the races were played out. You didn't really need a fancy pit crew. You could kind of have your own pit crew and really do it, because you only really change 2 tires at a time. Great opportunity. Great opportunity. It was nothing. It was so much fun to be able to go race a late model at the same track those guys were racing at, whether that's North Wilkesboro, whether that was Orange County, whether that was South Boston, Myrtle Beach. It was a great, great opportunity for guys that are trying to make their name on that style of racing coming up through.
All right, let's go over here to Stan. Raise your hand, Stan. Let's get him the mic, and then we'll go to Roger.
Hi, Stan Creekmore with RPMTonight.com. And Jack, before I ask you your question, I want to thank you very much, because I remember as a rookie writer, you gave me an interview without any problem whatsoever, and it was awesome. So, in all your years of racing, what was the greatest race of your entire career?
I've answered that quite a few times, and I won't mind doing it forever. In 1975, I took a helper and we built a car and went to Daytona and won the Permatex 300 in his own Wide World of Sports. And that was the greatest feeling that I've ever had in my whole life, probably of anything. I was coming down that pit road and I'm thinking, it was kind of warm that day, and all of a sudden everything got real cool and quiet, and I just felt like that, I don't know, Will Hunt was an owner, and he says, I know what it feels like to be in heaven. So that was a fabulous thing. I got mail from all over the world, especially in Europe and South America. It might be addressed to Jack Ingram, Asheville, USA. And that Wide World of Sports, I've got a big cardboard box full of those letters still right today. And I don't think anybody could ever done anything any better that day than what we did. I had Banjo and Junior Johnson as co-crew chiefs. And we had no radios, and Banjo walked all the way out in the middle of the grass area at Daytona and hold up big sign pit. And it seemed like every time I get to the front, they want me to pit. But they knew what they was doing, and I got to thank Junior Johnson always. we got a big crack in the top of the windshield and a big hole. They was going to blackplay me. Junior said he'd fix it, and they believed Junior, and he taped it up. Now, he didn't fix it, but he taped it up, and they let me finish that race, and we won. And that was the best time of my whole racing career.
And to follow up, Elliott, you've already told us about meeting him as a child. I seem to remember he was still racing when you got into what then was the Busch Grand National Series. Do you remember your first race against Jack Ingram as a competitor?
I don't think he was racing when I first got in. He was still racing when my brother got into it. Because honestly, this is funny how our worlds are tied together. Actually, after I met him a couple years later, my brother rented his race car and ran Jack's car at Hickory. And it has the same exact paint scheme that I have today, but it was number 10 instead of number 11. Of course, Jack, of course, drove the number 11. So I meet him. My dad and I have always been fans of him. And then years later, I get to meet him. And then years after that, I'm on his pit crew. Holy cow, man. This is like a childhood dream from a kid from Southern Virginia. So to put all that together and then fast forward to where we are now, to say I'm pretty excited about this and honored about this is definitely an understatement.
Go ahead, Roger.
Roger Holtzclaw, Speedway Media. Jack, two small parts. First of all, it's just been a few short years ago, I was working at Newport Speedway, and you were there in a late model. When was the last race that you actually ran and competed in?
Last September at Greenville Pickens Speedway. I struggled to run fifth, and I don't think it's over 10 cars finished. And believe it or not, I had blisters on my hands. I'm so tired I couldn't even hardly get out of that car. And I think I'll quit this. I don't even know how people, or I did it, or anyone else back in the day when the cars was hard to drive. I mean hard to drive because it didn't have power steering and nothing. This thing has power steering and all that stuff, and full containment seat and the whole deal. And here I can't even hardly walk. 50 laps.
And one other thing in your career, who was your greatest rival? Was it Sam Ard?
Actually, it would have been, no, not really. Sam did pretty well once that Busch Series started. He won a couple of them championships, done real well. But I raced against him 4 championships long before that, plumb back in the early 70s, and I beat him a couple of times then. The best driver that I raced against in late model sportsman and Busch Grand National, then called Busch Grand National, was Harry Gant. Butch Lindley, there was a magazine come out in sometime in the middle of the 70s, and Butch had said he'd won 36 races, and I said, Butch, I don't believe that could happen. And he was at my shop, and I'd call him at Daytona about every Monday or Tuesday to find out where the points would be and all that stuff. I called down there and I said, you know how many races Butch Lindley's won? She said, yeah, 14. I said, how many have I won? She said, 21. I said, how many has Harry Gant won? She said, 25. This toward the end of the season. But Harry never did tell people, inflate anything. And matter of fact, he probably tell you he didn't even know how many he won. But I got to say this about Harry Gant. We wound up being good friends. And he's going to induct me in that Hall of Fame, and that's quite an honor. He agreed to do that.
That's awesome.
Other questions? Back in the back, we got 2. And then we got 1, and we got this gentleman here. Let's take the man in the back first.
Mark Davis, NBC 12 here in Richmond. Elliott, it's kind of shaping up to be kind of a story for you tonight, the 1,000th nationwide race, your paint scheme to honor Jack. How big would it be for you to kind of get that victory here tonight at your home track, per se?
Well, as I walked out the door last night to leave home, my dad said, please don't embarrass Jack Ingram and run like crap tomorrow night. So that'll tell you how important it is to my family for us to run good here. And in the last couple of races here, I have run pretty good and run in the top 5. And it would mean a lot to me. And you guys know this. You've heard this before. I'd rather win here than win the Daytona 500. It's just because I've been coming here since I was, under a year old. My mom and dad have brought me here to watch my uncle race and, of course, watch these guys race when it was a half mile. So it would mean a lot. And it would mean that much more tonight, the 1,000th race. I think it's very important for Nationwide Series and for NASCAR, just like Kerry said, and it's a big race for us here. And Jack's also here supporting us tonight, and be neat to do it in his paint scheme. Car looks great, but it'll look even better with a lot of confetti on it. So that's what the approach me and my team are taking.
Right here on the side, I believe that might be our final one. Go ahead.
This is kind of for both you guys. In 1,000 races, a lot of things have changed about the Nationwide Series, and some might think that some of the charm has left. It's become a much more expensive thing to do, a big business in a lot of cases. Do you think the sport misses some of that charm over the last 1,000 races?
Actually, that Busch, well, now Nationwide Series now, when it started, frankly, these big cup teams didn't have a chance. And I'm going to tell you why. They had complete different cars, complete different wheelbase, complete different tread width, complete different motors. And they was a bunch of drivers that had spent their life on these half-mile racetracks, and Earnhardt and Walter and them come around, they was just somebody else at that racetrack. And it stayed that way for about 3 or 4 years, and then it started changing things big time. Every year they'd change the motor, change the wheelbase, change the body design. And now all they've got is basically a cup car with maybe a little less horsepower motor because of the carburetor. I don't know, it's a big change. And I don't know if it's for the good, but they changed it.
You know, I'm going to add to that. When I was a kid going to watch these guys race, I didn't really care if a cup guy came down as a fan. I didn't really care if some of those guys showed up to race or not, because I was there to watch him and watch Sam Ard and watch Chuck Mount and Tommy Houston and Tommy. I mean, they had enough good racing and good personalities and people to follow themselves. And I think that's what the Nationwide Series has tried to do the last couple of years by changing the points and things like that, is create identity for us as drivers in the Nationwide Series. So, yeah, things have changed money-wise and big business-wise and all the things that you've talked about. But I honestly think we're trying to get back to our roots by creating our own identity. But I just remember as a kid going to these races, yeah, Brett Bodine's in it or Sterling Mall or whoever's running, yeah, that's cool. But how about these other guys that we get to see every week racing this? And that to a fan was pretty special to me. So hopefully we can continue to go in this direction and build the identity that we're building for some of these drivers that are coming into the Nationwide Series.
Well, Elliott, good luck tonight and the rest of the season as you contend for a Nationwide Series championship. Thanks for allowing us to share some history here tonight. And Jack Ingram, congratulations again on your career, your achievements, and getting selected for the 2014 NASCAR Hall of Fame. I know that was a big deal when it was announced earlier this year, and it's going to be an even bigger deal in January when you get inducted. Congratulations.
Well, I just want to thank the Hall of Fame for having me come up here, and they bought my gas and got a motel room, so we're having a lot of fun.
First class organization right over here. Let's hear it for the Hall of Fame. Thank you. There you go. We love that honesty, Jack.